Hello, everybody. I think we're live. So welcome to our community stand-up focused on desktop. I'm Olia Gavrysh, PM on .NET Desktop, WinForms, WPF, and other things. I have my co-host Dmitry Lyalin here. Dmitry, if you want to quickly introduce yourself, if there anybody who does not know you yet.
Yeah, there might be a few people. Hi, everybody. My name is Dmitry. I work at Olia. I'm a PM on the .NET team, and I focus on .NET Hot Reload at the moment, Xaml Hot Reload, and Xaml tooling. Excited to talk to all of you, as always.
Perfect. And we have a guest, Pranav, today. Pranav, would you mind quickly introducing yourself and what are you focusing on?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Pranav. I'm a dev on the ASP.NET Blazor team. I'm here to talk to you about Hot Reload, and all the cool new features we've been adding to VS in .NET 6.
We're super excited to hear that. So today's episode mostly focused around Hot Reload. This is a great feature. I heard so many great feedback and comments. So super excited to hear what you guys brought new. But before, let's quickly go through what has been released. Let me share my screen. And this is Visual Studio blog. So the most important news, we have our preview 4 of Visual Studio 2022 available. And there are great features there. We have a dependent breakpoints. We have finding files 3 times faster than it was before. We have IntelliCode improvements, such as new suggestions for generate constructor and add parameter to the constructor and many other things. We have a separate blog post for that. Oh, we have new themes. New themes for Visual Studio. So our team partnered with community authors and we ported VS Code themes to Visual Studio. So now you can use all those gorgeous themes, such as winter is coming. And it's coming indeed based on the temperature in my house. Other ones. Yeah, I'm super excited to check out one of those. We improved our help menu. So this is the help menu that was before, we had before. New help menu, please give us feedback. There is an article by Jason. So look at it, tell us, do you like it? Not, any suggestions? We really value your feedback. And this is .NET blog. So another great news, we have RC1, release candidate for .NET 6, is out. Yay! Please check it out. Let us know. This is the release candidate. Super excited. And we also have HTTP 3 support in .NET 6. So these are news for today. And now let's move to the main topic, Hot Reload. Dmitry, go ahead.
All right, sounds good. So as Olia alluded to, we're going to do quite a lot of talking and hopefully showing you things about Hot Reload. If this is not a topic you're interested in, sorry, that's the live stream today. But of course, we're here to take your questions as well. Those questions don't have to be limited to Hot Reload. This is the desktop community stand-up. I welcome everybody to ask us questions about desktop, and we'll really try to answer, even though sometimes we'll be like, we don't know. We don't know everything, but we do our best. All right. So let's start off by talking about how we got here a little bit. We've been working on .NET Hot Reload for quite some time. If you join this live stream regularly, if you pay attention to our blogs and such, you would have seen all of this already. So I won't bore you with a complete recap, but I will say at a high level, Hot Reload is Visual Studio experience. It allows you to open a project, a .NET project or a C++ project that's not optimized in Visual Studio, run it with your debugger. In some cases, run it without the debugger, and get Hot Reload, which allows you to patch your app while it's running. No breakpoints needed, no need to pause your app. And in many cases, because of Hot Reload, the big advantage, no need to restart your application, rebuild in order to make a minor or sometimes even a major code change to your app. So we're really excited about Hot Reload, and we've demoed it before, and we'll do some demos again today. If you can share my desktop here. So release notes is a great place to learn all about what's new in Visual Studio. This time is no different. We document every preview release. Here's the URL. We can post it in the chat, but if you go to a search engine of your choice and you type in Visual Studio 2022 release notes, you'll wind up on the same page that I'm showing you here. So in Preview 4, we've documented what's new in detail for Hot Reload. So let's go ahead and jump to that section so I can talk to it, and then I'll show you Visual Studio a little bit afterwards as well. So this is just going to be a run through of what's new. And again, we are taking questions. I'm not looking at questions, so Olia or Pranav, feel free to speak up and let me know if there's a good timely question.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be looking at questions, and then we will get to every question, I promise.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, I'm on a single screen. I just see my release notes. So the big improvement we made in this release from a user experience perspective, this is an improvement that's universal to both .NET and C++ developers, is the UI changes. We've made the button for Hot Reload that's very prominent in the toolbar. It has a new icon. Please let us know what you think. There's certainly been various feedback already about the user experience, and we want to hear from you. It really is important for you to be happy with something this prominent in your toolbar. So let us know what you think about this new icon. But anyway, the icon and the tooltip have changed to say Hot Reload. This was always our intention. And now there's a couple of items underneath the button as well. So there's this drop down. If you click the drop down in the toolbar, and I'll show that in a second in the real product, you'll get a menu. You have a restart application. You have Hot Reload on file save. It's off by default, so this checkbox is not here by default. And we have a new settings experience. And again, I'll show all of that in a second. But just know that this is the new experience that you can take advantage of starting from Preview 4. What's important to note about Restart application is that it's a pretty cool feature. You have an existing restart button in the toolbar that you've had for a very long time in Visual Studio. It's next to the pause, stop, restart. And this button is still there, still works. And if you're using the debugger, these two buttons are identical. But if you're using Control F5, one of the ways you can start your application without debugger and still get Hot Reload. This is new. This wasn't there before. Hot Reload is a new feature. And in Visual Studio 2022, it works for many project types without using the debugger. We know lots of people like to start their apps without the debugger. So if you're doing start without debugger, let's say on your web app where it works today, or your WinForms or WPF app, it works in all of those situations, then this restart button won't actually restart your apps. But this one will. So you can think about this restart as always working with your Hot Reload scenario. Now, why would you want to restart your application like that? Let's imagine you're doing the kind of edit to your app which we can't apply at runtime. One example could be you're trying to add a method, but then you're trying to rename a method, and we don't support currently renaming methods once you've added them. And the IDE will give you what we call a root edit experience, where it's going to pop up a dialog and say, sorry, that change can't be applied after you hit Hot Reload. Or if you've opted into unsave, when you try to save the file, it'll try to Hot Reload, give you the dialog. That's where this restart button makes it easier than manually, quitting your app and restarting your app. So please take advantage of it. Let us know if it's working well for you. Hot Reload and save is very intuitive in the sense that once it's on, if you press save or save all files, doesn't matter which one, will apply all the changes that have been queued up. Now, what's important to know is that if you change multiple files, but you're saving one file, let's be very concrete. Let's say you have two classes. They're in two different physical files. One class has a method and another class has a method, and they call each other, and you want to fix both up in your running app. So you go to the first file, you make a change in the method, then you go to the other file, you make a change in the method, and you press save on that file. If you're opted into Hot Reload and save, we're going to apply both changes. Just understand that that's how the mechanism works. It doesn't matter which file you're saving. It's just kind of like a shortcut for you to make Hot Reload apply. So just be aware that Hot Reload isn't file specific on save. It's global on save in that sense. And then we have settings. Really exciting to finally give you an option if you choose for whatever reason to disable Hot Reload. It's in there. A few people have asked for that. We definitely want to give you that flexibility. Certainly, if you're finding reasons to turn off Hot Reload, please let us know. File vs feedback if it's causing you problems. We need your help. Like, we're in preview, and even if we're out of preview, without your support, it's hard to catch every single bug. All right, so with that, let's just scroll down what's next. Now we get into specifics. Not all of them will be applicable to desktop developers, but the family of developers tend to cross the lines. So let's talk about everything. The big news that we added for .NET Maui developers, the framework that, as you probably know, we're developing for cross-platform development. The continuation of our Xamarin story that we're calling .NET Maui finally supports Hot Reload in iOS and Android scenarios. This was work that we partnered with the Mono team to make possible, and now it's possible to do that as well. It works for both regular Maui apps and Maui Blazor apps, with the only limitation for Maui Blazor is that because that's a web hybrid framework that has Cascade style sheets and such, there's a few limitations there we're still working through. But the baseline of editing .NET code in the Razor file or any code behind works. So we're really excited to have shipped that. We made a bunch of improvements also to our ASP.NET scenarios. So if you're doing ASP.NET development as part of your work, not just desktop development, we've enabled CSS auto-sync. CS HTML file editing will now support a lot more edits. In most cases, when you edit the file, the browser will auto-refresh, so lots of little improvements there. And we are continuing to just generally make more edits available. Like this support more edits is really generic in the sense that it makes the world better for both .NET Hot Reload developers and developers using edit and continue, because the mechanism is shared in many cases. So if you are looking at C# 10 features, we're making more of those be available as something you can do at runtime. Now, the related feature for our desktop crowd is Xaml Hot Reload. And while we have made Xaml Hot Reload better for Maui developers, that's a really Maui-specific thing, we've also done some changes that are more important for this audience, I think, so I want to talk about it, which is all of this here. We're trying to make sure that XAML Hot Reload and .NET Hot Reload work well together, especially in situations where MVVM, as many of you use the MVVM pattern, making sure that modifying things in the view model, in your code behind, and then making changes to XAML and vice versa, all just flows well together. And there is a bunch of work that has to happen there. So here's some highlights and things we're enabling. Today, our biggest limitation still is if you make a change first in XAML. Let's say you change a binding path to a property that doesn't yet exist, and then you go and you hot reload the property so it does exist. That's not going to work, unfortunately. You have to go back to your XAML and re-add the property, kind of delete it and retype it in. It's like a known limitation. We're working on it. But even that didn't work before we started making some of our improvements. So there's a preview feature. It's under options right here that you can go turn on and get that working. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. We can talk about live preview a bit more later. I think we can start with the hot reload side of things. With that, any questions that we should take before I show some things in VS?
Yeah, sure. Let's go through some questions. So the first question was regarding Visual Studio 2022 and Visual Studio 2022 for Mac. When is the release plan? I posted the roadmaps, links to the roadmap, and it's going to be in 2022. I don't think we announced any fixed dates yet. Not necessarily they will come on the same date, right, Dmitry? Because these are two separate projects. Yeah.
We basically don't have anybody here to authoritatively talk about VS for Mac. That team blogs. They have a roadmap. That's where people should go to look for updates.
Yes. All right. Now about Hot Reload. There was not a question, more of a complaint. With Hot Reload, I keep getting the compile error. Nothing shows in the error list tab. So I would recommend if you could. Oh, Dmitry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny. I ran into one of those yesterday, and I filed a bug on it. Please follow my example. Follow my lead. File a bug. Like it would be really helpful because we get some telemetry when you use Visual Studio Feedback. That button in the top right, and you say, "Hey, I'm using Hot Reload. It's not working for me. Here's a screenshot. If you don't mind sharing your screenshot of Visual Studio, so you can opt in to include that with a click, or just paste a screenshot into your as you typing the feedback, and let us know what's happening. A lot of times, like taking a step back, like Hot Reload is complicated. Pranav is probably going to nod his head vigorously when I say something like that, as one of the developers having to actually make the complicated stuff work. Super complicated. So we sometimes have cases where we know that the kind of error you're experiencing, the kind of behavior, weird behavior, like we might know about it already, but don't assume we do. Please file the feedback. We might look at your feedback and say, oh, wow, this person's using this combination of frameworks and they're doing this experience using this way of starting the application. Oh, that's going to cause an error, right? And we'll go fix it. Like we're committed to quality here. Sorry about the problem.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is, any plans for Hot Reload UI changes for WinForms? We actually just had a meeting yesterday, and we are working in this direction. Dmitry, if you want to provide more details right now, or I just recommend to, we'll keep you posted once we reach any decisions. But yeah, that topic is definitely important that we are working on investigating
The
this.
one thing I'll add over what Olia said, which Olia said everything important, I'll just add it's a direction. We're heading in that direction. We're definitely not at the point where we know exactly how to make all that work. There's lots of complexity that, honestly, even I was a bit naive on until we talked to Olia's amazing dev team, and they're like, "Oh, here's a bunch of stuff you should know," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I wish everything was easy to make." We want to do this personally. We have to prioritize it against difficulty and other things that we could potentially do. So one of the important things as a community is please make your voice heard by asking this question. You've already done that a little bit. What becomes even stronger is if you file a VS feedback ticket that's a suggestion ticket and you say, hey, this is important to me, here's why. Or you can even go to our .NET GitHub if you just want to use GitHub and just file an issue that's in a similar vein. WinForms is built on top of an open source framework. Feel free to make your voice heard in open source. We monitor all those places and we will add your voice to the conversation.
Perfect. Another comment from Gregory, I'm switching it off. It's far too slow and unpredictable. I'm sorry you're having this experience. If you could share more details, like what exactly is unpredictable, file feedback via Visual Studio feedback issue, because that's how we learn about specific problems. Because that would be super helpful. Give us as much details as you can, and we'll try to fix everything. But thank you for providing feedback, and negative feedback is very valuable for us because that's how we know what to fix, what is important.
Yeah, right. I think I'll say that in that statement, when you say it's slow, we'd love to know what's slow about it. Slow is subjective. So is it slow because when you click the button, it takes too long for your app to get patched? Is it slow because you perceive that it's slowing down your debug process somehow, or your Visual Studio is acting slower when you're using it? That would be super feedback as a VS feedback ticket. And in those sort of tickets, you can always even be more vague about just like a general feeling, like it's unpredictable. That's good for us to hear in VS feedback. So please let us know again. Speaking up here is not lost. I will bring a lot of this back to the team, but having tickets allows us to see what your environment's like and what could be maybe causing some of these issues. But the good news is we did add settings. You could disable it now, so you feel free to do that. And we're really sorry that you have to, but at least we're trying to give you the flexibility.
Okay, Gregory already given us feedback from save 20 seconds to update screen. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah, please file some feedback with like just something, the app type you're working on, some other information would be super helpful. So I would really appreciate. I know it takes time. Like I keep saying, file feedback. It's not free. I get it. Like you have to stop what you're doing, go through our UI. We pop a browser up. It hopefully signs in. I know. Like it's not the easy experience, but it really makes the product better for everybody. We truly do look at all the feedback. A lot of times people tell me, oh, you folks didn't fix my particular feedback ticket. I know that could happen, but we look at everything and it's really helpful for us. So thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Okay, there is a question. Will Visual Studio 2022 run on Apple M1? I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Do you guys know?
No clue. It's probably not something we can answer in this setting.
Desktop.net. Windows community stand up as a bad crowd. Okay, somebody liked the old hot reload button. Yeah, I'm sorry. The fire was pretty cool, right? But I like this one too.
I'll be transparent because that's the whole point of these stand-ups. If we weren't, as honest as we could be with our community, there'd be no point in you wasting your time joining a live stream of us just showing you release notes, right? This is the meat of the conversation. I'm not a huge fan of the icon. Art is subjective. We have a great design team. They really work hard to try to make Visual Studio look good. They try to balance the needs of thousands of people screaming at them for give me icons, give me colors, give me fonts, all of that stuff. They try their best. I'm still working with them. We might change the icon one more time before we release. There's a conversation going on this week about can we do something that's closer back to the Fire. Just because I've heard it now, not just now, but like I heard it from other people as well. And so we really appreciate that sort of feedback. So it's really appropriate to even use the VS feedback button to file opinions about the UI, right? If you don't like the colors choices we're making, the icons we're changing, doing that has a lot of impact. Like your voice will, like the design team will see that ticket, file that ticket, and you'll reach the right people. I will hear about it as well, etc.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to add, our design team also takes into account all the accessibility issues, how to accommodate people with not the perfect vision, and so on. So I always listen to their advice, but yeah. All right, another question. How about hot restart, or it's under hot reload?
Hot restart is, well, I guess the way I would explain it. So hot reload, think about it as a very global scenario, and hot restart is a very local scenario. So federal versus local politics here. We're trying to make hot reload really broadly available as a baseline functionality. But you can't really do that with hot restart, because hot restart always depends on what kind of app you're building, what kind of hot restarting we can do for it, what makes sense to do for it. Like there's lots of pivots there. If you think we're missing faster restarting capability where you'd like it, file VS feedback. That's really a valid way to get feedback to us about like, hey, I'm constantly building this type of app. Even with hot reload, I still have to restart it a lot. And here's where I would really love to see more productivity in the rebuild restart cycle. We've done optimizations in places that are almost like invisible to you. So one place is Android development. So if you're doing Xamarin Forms or Maui, and you're doing Android emulator, and you're changing your code and having to restart, after the first start, it will get faster. So we do have like hot restart tech and investments we've made there, and they're totally invisible to you, right? Because it's like a button. Just when you're restarting, it's faster. So there you go. And I'll add that, well, hopefully Olia can, I know Olia can read Russian. I can't read Russian, so if you're typing in Russian at me...
What? Dmitry,
я только могу говорить.
Russian to me
Я говорю по-русски, но я не читаю, я не пишу. Это мои родители не научили, sorry, not me. Yeah, there you go.
That just says hi, привет.
Yeah, привет, привет, everybody.
Привет, there you go. All right. Okay, is there any limitation using hot reload with MVU frameworks like Comet?
It's there's no like specific limitations that are like, I guess the word limitations is a bit overloaded in our world, right? So when you think about hot reload as a baseline capability, we have two different ways you can hot reload code. You can do it purely as our attempt to do like a differential change against things that are in memory. So you have a class, you go into the method, you make a change. We try to hot patch that method. Another technology we've released, we haven't talked a whole lot about it, but it's there. We have some attributes you can add to classes, which if we see the attribute, we won't try to do that. We'll just create a new instance of that class and create an event notification that happened and let the framework take advantage of it. So frameworks like MVU could actually wire into that. Have we fully tested it? No, I mean, MVU has not been the .NET 6 priority for things like Comet. I know James is very well in the loop with what we're doing. He's the owner of the Comet experiment on GitHub, and he's in the loop. So talk to James. Let's see if James can do something with it. Yeah. All right.
There is a question about Maui, but we suggest to take it to the Maui community stand-up. There. Okay. Dmitry, if you want to go ahead with your demos, and then we do another session of Q&A.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's do me for a minute, and then we'll talk to Pranav here, because I want to have him show some cool stuff. So Pranav, that's your warning. You're next. I'm going to just try to share my screen effectively. Give me 1 second here. Which one did I want to start with? Okay, let's start with this project. So let me know when the community can see my screen. Just close down all my tabs here.
I think we can see us.
It's visible now.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to start this application here. This application is mostly empty, but it'll enable me to show some of the things I want to talk about. So here I have a project where I'm actually multi-starting two apps. I have both a WPF app and a WinForms application. It's using the debugger in this case to attach to both apps. That means that I have both Xaml Hot Reload in the WPF side and .NET Hot Reload in both the WPF and WinForms application. I could also have done Control F5. That's a new feature we've added, as I've talked about a little bit earlier, and this would still work, except that you would not get Xaml Hot Reload. It's something we want to make available in the future, but for now, Xaml Hot Reload is limited to the debugger experience. So just kind of be aware of that. I know lots of you folks work on XAML, so I always want to point out the edges. But in this case, everything is lit up. And what does that mean? That means that I have this new button here. I'm going to open it up and zoom in, just like I say zoom in, and of course my zoom tool died because I restarted my machine before this live stream. Good job, me. But that's okay. You've seen a giant image of this when I was showing release notes. We have the hot reload button, the restart button, and save. And I saw a question in chat about hot reloading on save. So I'm going to kind of reiterate that by default, this is what your experience will look like. By default, when you install this update and you get the new button, hot reload on save is not going to be available. It's available, but not on by default. And if you go into settings, a new settings screen, which we make really easy to access, either through options dialog or from the button, we actually give you ability to turn that on here. So you can turn that on here. And if your app wasn't running, we do give you the option to disable hot reload. If you're doing that, please tell us why. Again, VS feedback really is effective. I saw another comment in chat before I started sharing my screen where somebody said, oh, VS feedback doesn't feel effective. I'm sorry, it pains me to hear that it doesn't feel effective to you compared to GitHub. I know GitHub, but it is effective in a sense. Like if I use the word effective to describe a process that gives value to us as engineers here working on this product, we live in VS feedback. We look at VS feedback. We triage it. We discuss it. We have often very long conversations in Azure DevOps that backs it. We create tasks and bugs. Like it is effective. And if you tell us, I'm turning off hot reload for a reason, I will hear about it. So in that sense, it's effective. So again, sorry if you don't feel that it is, but it's really helpful. So this is the new settings dialog. In the future, if we add more settings, we'll put them onto this screen. So it's a central place for hot reload settings. There is still a XAML hot reload settings screen. It's separate because XAML hot reload has a lot of its own options. Hopefully, you never really have to go in here. You only should come in here if something isn't working well for you. For the most part, all of the options that are kind of experience related are available from other places. They're just also here. The example of that is this apply hot reload on save. You never have to go in here to change that setting because it's always right here in the dropdown. So if I come back here, I enable hot reload and save. Now I get the experience. So to answer the question of, do I have hot reload and save? Yes, you do as of preview 4. If you come into this button and you opt into it, when you press save, the change will get applied. Let's go ahead and show you an example of that. So I'm going to open up and make a really, really simple change. I'm going to change this message box to say it works on save. And now I'm going to just hit save. So I'm not clicking any button. I'm just going to go back to my WPF app, and it works on save. Trust me, you can make much bigger changes to your code than changing the message box string. But if that's your scenario, I've showed you that it works quite well. Another cool thing I wanted to demonstrate is that if you have like a shared project where both the WPF and WinForm app in this case take dependency on this shared project, and you have some code in there, changing this code, like if I change this code to 6, and again I just press save, and I go now to my WinForms app, I get 6 here in this message box because the data is coming from here.
You aren't sharing like your app, like it's just all CSVS.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, can you all imagine everything? I was very descriptive when I talked, so I guess you could totally imagine. Let me share my whole screen with you. I have nothing to hide, mostly. Let me share my entire screen. Olia, you're the host. You should have been the first one to say that. It's all Olia's fault today.
Yes, blame it all on me.
all Olia's fault. All right. Yeah, sorry.
I was going through questions.
Yeah, no worries. All right, you can see my entire screen now. So yeah, here's my fancy app. It's really fancy where I press the button in this WinForms app. The code change I made here is shown here. If I go back to my WPF app and I undo the change I made here, so I'm going to Control-Z back to the original state. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to now go back to the WPF app, click the button. Now to the WPF app, click the button. Now that's showing 6. So yeah, hot reload is working. It's working kind of very silently on save as long as you opt into this option on save. And as you can see by the look and feel of my apps, you really didn't miss much. We are working on better sample apps for the future that are prettier, have more complexity, and will feel more real in the kind of changes I'm showing you. But in the interest of my crazy morning, I hope you don't mind us showing you that. All right, I'm going to show one more thing, and then I'd love to talk with Pranav a bit. So here's a Maui app that I'll just demonstrate. This wasn't possible before. So before, if you had a Maui app, pray to the demo gods that all this now works. I should have had my emulator running. I have usually 5 versions of Visual Studio on my machine. Oh, geez, this isn't even the right project type. All right, I'm going to skip this demo. Nobody will kill me too much about it, but I will show you what I meant. So if you have a Maui project, you can basically now change methods. You can run a Maui app as I'll stop sharing my screen. The value is lost because my demo's all messed up. So with a Maui application, you can actually run it as different kinds of runtimes, right? So you can run it as a WinUI app on Windows, and that's going to use Core CLR behind the scenes. You can run it as in the Android emulator or the iOS device simulator, etc. And if you're running it in devices or simulators or emulators, it's all mono behind the scenes as a runtime. That means you can change method bodies as of today. We are going to try to make that better in the future, but there's all sorts of limitations that you will not have if you run a WinUI app. So if you want like the full power of the debugger and all the changes and the experience, then you should go just run Visual Studio with WinUI with a Maui project. But if you need to debug something in an Android app, let's say, Android head, then you will get at least some capability that you didn't have before. There's also a question in chat about C++. If you're using Visual Studio 2022, if you have a project that's a C++ project that's not optimized and you're running with the debugger, we will give you the edit and continue experience through the Hot Reload UI, which means you don't have to pause your app. A big example, there's a beautiful like little game sample thing the C++ team was showing me. They were flying a little ship around, and the debugger is attached. Then they go into the code. They made some changes so that the next time the ship fires, the colors and the patterns are different, and they reloaded that without stopping their game. They went back to the game, they pressed fire, and the ship lit up in colors and stuff. And I was like, that's so wonderful, right? To see that experience come to those developers as well. So that's the answer. All right, we'll take more questions later, but I want to switch over to Pranav a little bit. Pranav, why don't you tell folks before you show anything, just the kind of what you work on here in a bit more detail, and don't be modest, you work on a lot of things.
Of course. Hi. So I work on the ASP.NET Core team. My primary focus is on Blazor. So like a lot of the demos that I'm probably going to be doing here today are going to be focused on the web. But the idea is like the premises, like the fundamentals of it, like use the same things that work on a WinForms app and a desktop app, because a lot of the work that we did was in like the .NET runtime and the compiler and Visual Studio. So we expect to sort of keep making progress here over .NET 7 and like VS releases, and so like things should just keep getting better. Yeah. If you want, I can like start with my sharing my screen and demoing.
Yeah. Why don't you start sharing? I will say one more thing before you go, which is that one of the things we are trying to make sure folks know about is that Hot Reload is pretty universal. I was talking to Jeff Fritz, another prolific streamer. He does a lot of Azure Functions development, and he's been enjoying Hot Reload as part of Azure Functions development. We don't talk about it a ton because it's just another Core CLR runtime, scenario, another VS Play, so it works there, and he's loving it, and he's not shy with negative feedback. So if it wasn't great, I would hear about it. Trust me. So that's good to hear. And here, web. When I was a desktop developer, I worked on web all the time. And web was part of my life. I built services for my for my client apps. There was all sorts of things. There were web experiences. I would work on other projects that are web. So I wanted to bring Pranav to today's live stream, not because he's going to show you desktop, but because this is probably your world too. So with that, Pranav, why don't we only add Pranav's screen if he's sharing it, and take it away.
All right. Hi. So yeah, like because Dmitry said we were going to like look at APIs, so we can start with like a backend thing and see how Hot Reload can help you like improve your inner loop. So I'm creating a ASP.NET Core Web API. This is, forgot to click on the create button. You get a familiar controller, and actions, and so on and so forth. If you're starting with .NET 6, we have the new minimal hosting template. So this is like using top level statements. It's using the new minimal hosting API. So like it's a very crisp minimal look here. If you're coming from .NET 5, this would be like 2 separate files. There'd be a startup and program, and so like all of them are like now much more consolidated and much more appealing to people somewhat new to .NET. So Dmitry showed running his desktop apps using the debugger. So that was with F5. I'm going to do a control F5 so that we're going to do this without a debugger attached. The way I usually like to do this is to have my my IDE and my browser running side by side. So my app here has Swagger enabled. We started adding Swagger to our API templates starting in 5.0. So this should basically give you a way to inspect all the endpoints that your application exposes, and possibly call them, like for example, like this one says, hey, there's a get weather forecast endpoint, and that returns a data structure that looks something like this. So let's do something interesting here. So if you notice, like this is weather forecast. I'm going to try and change this route name. So it's called using a different endpoint. So let's do get weekly forecast. And so this is a route name. There is an issue today, like in the VS 17 preview 4, where you get this annoying dialog. There are days when I go by where I don't see this ever, and then there are days where I get it like, yes?
Pranav, could you zoom in, please? Because it's very hard to see, and we get the comments. And
okay.
Maybe even more.
Oh, wow. Yep. Yeah, that's what you get with a high DPI display. But yeah.
Guys, let us know if you can see well or if you want more.
Yeah. Let me make it 200%. All right. So, and I'll zoom in my browser too. So if you notice, the moment I saved, my browser refreshed, and I get this get weekly forecast is like my new API endpoint, and I can like run it. I didn't have to like rebuild my app. Everything just sort of worked. I can see all the responses here, and you can do more, right? Like you can also do things like change what responses get returned. Now, this did a browser refresh. With an API endpoint, like all we're able to do is like, tell you like, hey, we've applied the update, but the browser still has to refresh. But you can notice like now we're returning only 2 things. And we can also do interesting things like, let me scroll back here. Today, I'm going to add a new I can't type. And if you notice, like the moment I save, like my new endpoint lights up, and I can run it, and so on and so forth. And I can even like change the body of the method. So like, for example, like, this is, I'm in Seattle, so I could say something like, sorry, I'm getting like a random phone call.
The joy of a live stream, you get random phone calls.
I know.
You can't hide them. You just have to throw your phone.
Much to the chagrin of people like further down the coast where this isn't true. I'm going to like change this, but we're able to change things like this one still worked through, but we could switch it up and say like, hey, it's not rainy in Seattle today, and boom, right? So yeah, if you're building an API for your as a backend for your desktop app or for another web app, like like this greatly improves your like inner loop experience. The same thing also works for other application models. I'll briefly go into MVC just because it like touches on an interesting point that Dmitry brought up. And before I go there, I'm going to quickly bring the dialog back up. For people that are familiar with building MEC apps, uh, in 5.0 and 3.1, we used to have an option. Let me see if we can zoom in. I have almost never managed to get this working correctly. Let's. So hopefully this is like not terrible. Like given my luck, it's going to be awful. Nope, I can't make it work. All right. Let
we'll
me.
get
Yeah.
you zoom it at some point. We'll get it. Make sure everyone has zoom it before they get onto this call.
I know.
Much easier to use.
So okay, let me go back to that screen and I can try and show this without it messing it up. So if you looked at our 5.0 and 3.1 templates, we had this option called enable Razor runtime compilation. So we used to host a compiler inside your app and like compile your Razor views just so that you could get this fast iterative performance. In 6.0, we think that hot reload is good enough as a substitute for it that we stopped we stopped like recommending it as an option. So like that option has disappeared from the UI. So I have my app running, familiar controllers, also now with like our top level statement with like a minimal thing. And let's run this again. I do have the hot reload on file save. That's why you were seeing them, seeing things hot reload as soon as I save things. I just gotten accustomed to it. So we'll do something here. Welcome to the community stand-up. So we make a change here. So I make an edit to a fun, but like ignore that edit button. It's going away soon. It's like in a build of VS that's being like worked on today. So hopefully like tomorrow's build we wouldn't see this. But if you notice like our text changed here, and like the way Dmitry said, like you're also able to do like things where you're able to make changes across multiple files and have them collaborate. So if you wanted to say like I would say this message is here. I'm going to leave this file unchanged just because I get to show off, and come here and say view data of message. Oh, nope, that's not what I wanted. Completion. There you go. And then just to show this is for realsies from my controller for realsies. Yeah, so like it's using this thing, and it's not just like using stuff from the action. And this is like really nice if you're building like a model, or you're like you're sort of going about and saying, oh, I have name and ID on my form, but like now I need to add like an age or like date of birth or something like that. So you get this like really fast iterative experience. I'll do a quick demo of Blazor. I think like the Blazor tends to be our default go-to experience just because it demos really well with hot reload. Unlike our other web projects, like we're able to do an interesting thing with Blazor, which is like we don't have to like refresh your app. Your application state sort of persists between updates, and that's because of like Blazor is by essence a stateful application model, right? So I can demo what's happening here every time. But if you notice here, like I clicked the counter 4 times, like this thing is now 4. Now when I add another one, you'll notice that this thing persists at 4. And that's because what happened was that we patched Blazor's we told Blazor like, hey, there's another counter component, go add it. But then we didn't need to like refresh the browser and lose your application state. We could simply tell Blazor, please re-render, because it plays very well with like the rendering model that it has. I imagine like once we sort of land things like we would get like desktop UI sort of reload to also work very similar to this. And yeah, and while we're here, because we were also talking about like the cool CSS update, VS did some like really good work to leverage browser link, which is a tech that we already had, to to make the CSS update feature like really well. So if you notice, like I'm gonna like not even save, and as soon as I start typing, like it goes and does a hot reload, updates the CSS, and like boom, like you get this like really quick iterative experience. And I'm terrible at like doing CSS. Like I was recently doing some app building, and it took me more time to figure out like a bootstrap theme and like figuring out how to like center divs and so on and so forth. Like so having this where I can make a change and like see it like, and not have to like go to the Chrome's console, like my Edge's console, and then like make changes there and then paste it back. Like having this makes all of that like much more like uh, like it makes the experience like a lot nicer.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Yep.
Perfect.
That's all I have for my demo.
That's excellent. Very impressive.
Demos.
Thank you, Pranav.
Yeah, so I'll add one more thing, which is, we do have a scenario now where there is Razor pages inside of a client app. In fact, it could be a desktop application. With .NET Maui, we do give you the option to either just build a pure XAML app or to add a Blazor web view to it and be able to then build Blazor components using Razor to do that work. So HTML and C# mixed in together is the stuff that Pranav was just showing you, is all coming to desktop developers who choose to go that path, including the CSS, hot reload, everything is coming. Not all of it is working today, or even in Preview 5 probably, but we are working on it. I think that story by 17.1 will probably be fully baked if I had to like put a hat on and make a guess. For folks talking in the chat, I've been watching. Gregory, totally hear your feedback. Please file VS feedback on this just in case, but it sounds like you might be hitting some of the similar issues as well. There was another question about JavaScript projects. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what folks mean by JavaScript. Again, there's a lot of different projects that use JavaScript or JavaScript frameworks or TypeScript, etc. I would say go try hot reload anywhere where there's C#. That's what the technology is built for. So it's not going to hot reload JavaScript per se, but if your project is powered by .NET behind the scenes in the server side or in WebAssembly, like that's where we're trying to give you improvements. All right.
Okay, we can just pick questions and start answering them. I can show this one. What's exactly the difference between .NET 5 and .NET 6? So in .NET 6, we added so many new APIs and improvements. I would separately talk about performance improvements all over the stack. So performance in .NET 6 is much, much better. It's in .NET itself. We made improvements in WinForms. We refactored the old code. So for .NET 6, the redraw time and memory allocation is much, much better than in .NET 5. Then we made improvements in 64, right? x64. We switched to CrossGen 2. We added we improved system.math. We added new performance-based APIs for mathematical functions and many APIs across like all stacks. For example, in WinForms, from the top of my mind, we added new API to set default font all over your application. And the most important thing is .NET 6 is a long-term support version. So we're going to support .NET 6 for 3 years. And that's why I recommend you to definitely port from .NET 5 to .NET 6. Hopefully you won't hit any issues. If there are any breaking changes, it should be very easy to fix. But that port from .NET 5 to .NET 6 is something that I definitely recommend. Then you can stay on .NET 6 for 3 years. But in my opinion, it's always great to be on the latest version of .NET because that's how you get the latest language updates, performance improvements, all new things that we keep adding to .NET, you get right away. But yeah, port to .NET 6.
Yeah, plus hot reload is going to work the best in .NET 6. That's where there's all sorts of things that for hot reload we've done the work, such as the Razor pages. Pranav, you probably have the whole list in your head, right? Of like, what's a .NET 6 hot reload feature? So what else can you think of that we've done? Yeah, no problem. So we've done a bunch of stuff that's like .NET 6 specific, right? That if you're in .NET 5, you get some hot reload, but you're not going to get like the event mechanism, right? Like you're not going to get Razor page editing. All of that is .NET 6 specific.
Yes, yeah, like all of the, so a lot of the updates that we saw rely on like, the runtime telling us like, hey, there's a new metadata update change that happened, like, something got patched. You need to like maybe think about clearing your caches, like, or re-rendering, and all of those are like .NET 6 specific features. I think Olia, like I linked a chat in the blog post in the chat, which I'm not able to share, but David Fowler, who's our partner architect, like he created like a small like summary of like, hey, look at all these cool new things. And there's like fun like link APIs, like I always love using link in my apps, and like there's like new chunking APIs and min-by and max-by and all of those things. If you do like a lot of like file IO stuff, like Olia said, like they did a bunch of perf work in the with like files, and it's like there's like dramatic improvements. There's a blog post about like how it's like 10 million times faster, because it used to take like 1 second, and now it's like a nanosecond or something like that. So yeah, definitely like things for that. Plus like like Dmitry said, like if you need, like if you want to get the most out of Hot Reload, like you need to be on .NET 6.
Right. Plus .NET Maui, Blazor Desktop, and so on. All right. Does Hot Reload work with C++ projects?
Yeah, we answered this one already.
Oh, I apologize. Okay.
No, yeah, I was just picking questions sometimes right out of the feed.
Okay,
so
okay. Yes.
If we have duplicates, we'll just move on.
We have a asynchronous question processing mechanism.
Yeah. Should be a way for us to like tag questions here in the right as answered. That would be amazing. We've got to send StreamYard some feedback.
Also, somebody asked to turn on subtitles, and I don't think I wasn't able to find it in StreamYard, but I'll ask for the next time so we have subtitles.
Yeah, we definitely have to get that sorted out if it's possible. It's probably platform specific, so we might have to. Yeah, we'll talk to James about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's a question here I can answer. Just kind of to reiterate something we've tried to say. Sorry if we failed to say it. So Panfar, you asked about .NET Maui having Blazor capabilities in the app. So yeah, basically we're building this hybrid scenario for .NET Maui, where if you create a .NET Maui Blazor app inside the app, it is still a .NET app. There's still code behind. There's still XAML, but your views and stuff can be now constructed through Razor components. Pranav, am I using the right language? I think I am. I'm an honorary Blazor PM. That's what somebody joked the other day. I try. I'm still learning all the stuff. But basically, you can use your HTML and C# skills together in a Razor page inside of a Maui app. They can then run as a WinUI app, totally qualifying for the desktop community stand-up scenario. It's exciting. It's giving people flexibility. It's very new. It's certainly open to feedback. Please let us know how that experience works. But yeah, try it for Maui.
Right. Regarding the question about will we be able to develop desktop apps using VS for Mac, or will it be always on Windows? That depends which platform are you going to use, because WinForms and WPF will remain on Windows. Those are Windows-specific platforms. They have Windows in their name. They're thin layer wrappers around Windows APIs, and we're not going to move them to other operating systems. But Maui, of course, will be available for other platforms, and you can develop Maui with VS for Mac.
Yeah, the VS for Mac is a bit delayed right now. I mean, that much has been talked about. So as soon as we have something for you there, you'll be able to build Maui for it.
All right. Any other questions? Anything else, folks, you would like us to answer?
Yeah. Well, I guess I will say this because people could have missed the blog post. So .NET Maui was originally scheduled to GA with .NET 6. So whenever .NET 6 would GA, .NET Maui would GA. Maui is like an optional workload of .NET 6, so we do have a bit more flexibility in shipping it at a cadence that makes sense to ensure there's quality, and that we're happy with what we're delivering for you. So we've made a decision to delay it, a bit longer. There's a great blog post on the Xamarin blog, I believe, or the .NET blog. Sorry, I forget which one, but David Ortno, yeah, .NET blog. So David Ortno, who's a PM, my co-PM on the Maui side of the team, he has posted more details there as part of his previous 6 posts, I think. All right.
Does Hot Reload work on Watch?
Yeah, I mean, Watch is its own feature. So like Hot Reload has done nothing to make Watch better or give it more capabilities. Whatever Watch can do today, you can still do that today. So the question from Panfor about Maui and the web app. So Maui does not enable you to build a web app. Maui enables you to use web tech to build a desktop app in this release. So there's no web head, but if you want to do iOS, Android, Mac through Catalyst, or desktop for WinUI through Maui, and you want to use Blazor to build those UIs, so you want to combine your CSS and HTML skills and mix it with C# and Razor files, yes, that's going to be possible. But those apps don't become like WebAssembly apps or something magically, unfortunately, not in this release at least.
We don't have Hot Reload for Visual Studio Code.
Yeah, this feature is focused on Visual Studio 2022. That's the scenarios we've been showing today. VS Code is just a code editor, and it can take advantage of anything that's like a CLI capability, but it's not like we're not explicitly building these features into VS Code.
Right. If there are no more questions, let's give it a few seconds.
Yeah, well, it's so awesome talking to our community. Thank you all for your amazing questions. Thank you, Olia, for your hosting and all of your ability to remember things that you're like responding to questions like I would not have remembered, like what's new in .NET, etc. So thank you for that. And Pranav, thanks for being a special guest today. I hope you come back more on this and other stand-ups. Your contribution is huge behind the scenes, and I love when folks from the dev team can come up and talk to the community directly.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. There was one more question. How about Linux desktop apps?
Not yet. Sorry, we're not going to deliver that this year. We hear you. File GitHub issues on the Maui repo. That's a really good place to make your voice heard about Linux. Maybe you'll get like 100,000 upvotes, and we'll have no choice. Yes. I mean, we want to, like, if the PMs are very funny animals, we want all the features as much as you. We'd love to get all the features. It's just the reality of engineering capacity usually slows us down. Unlimited engineers. If we had unlimited engineers matching unlimited ideas, we'd be golden. We do our best.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for your feedback. I want to give a special thanks to those who are contributing in our open source repositories, who are posting issues, filing feedback tickets. We read every single of them, and that helps us a lot to prioritize our work, to understand what is important for you. So please keep doing that. And thank you for joining us today. See you in a month. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.